Hi there, this is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, and welcome to our random review. Today's random review is The French Conspiracy from 1972, directed by Yves Boisset. This is a Code Red Blu-ray, but a bit of Kino Lorber in it as well. There's no extras on this disc, but you just get the original French language with English subtitles or an English dub. Now, the only other Yves Boisset film that I have seen is Dog Day with Lee Marvin, which is kind of an interesting failure about an aging bank robber in France who's on the run after a failed robbery, and he takes refuge in one way or another in a farm. It's kind of interesting, but also a little bit uneven. Also stars David Bennett, or the little boy from the Tin Drum and Legend. But The French Conspiracy, which is called like Attentat, or The Assassination, or The Plot, with various different names. This is one of these Euro thrillers from the early 70s that has just a ridiculous cast. It's Jean Louis Trintignant, who sadly left us recently, in a film that pretty much sums up Jean Louis Trintignant's career. He's surrounded by actors who perhaps are more famous, actors who are bigger screen presences. Meanwhile, Trintignant just quietly just goes through the film doing his thing, which is pretty much what he did throughout his wonderful career. But this also stars Michel Piccoli, Jean Seberg, Gian Maria Volonte, and as you know, I have a rule: I see Volonte in a film, I buy Volonte. Michel Bouquet, who has been lots of unpleasant characters in Chabrol films. Bruno Kremer, Philippe Noiret, and Roy Scheider. But there's also Francois Perier from Le Samurai, where he was the Un Flic. And strange enough, he plays Un Flic in this film. Nigel Davenport's in it. I mean, the cast is ridiculous, but it's one of those films, can all these pieces come together and make sense? I mean, none of these actors are particularly scenery chewing and anything like that. It is a kind of understated film, but again, seeing all these wonderful actors in one film is pretty astounding. The first half of the film is pretty dry, to be honest. It only really gets going in the second half. At 123 minutes, it's perhaps 10 minutes too long, but there is a lot to enjoy in it. The English dub actually runs shorter, but I haven't watched the English dub yet. I don't think I probably ever will. But the film, the story is your typical 70s political mishmash. Volonte plays a character who was a terrorist on the Algerian side. Obviously, France and Algeria have a wonderful relationship throughout history. And he wants to come back to France to take up a political post, not as a... Obviously in France he's viewed as a terrorist, perhaps not. In Algeria, pretty much he's viewed as a person who just causes trouble for the French. But he's not really that confident going back to France in case something happens to him. But he is friendly with Trintignant, who he met earlier in his life. Trintignant's a journalist. So Trintignant kind of sets up an interview with Roy Schneider's company, who's also a writer, journalist. But Trintignant is blackmailed by Michel Bouqet and his various cohorts, Noiret and Piccoli, who is really a little bit more dangerous and threatening than his usual roles. He's suave, but he's also torturer and kills people. So Trintignant's blackmailed to get Volonte on his side and kind of arrange this, and then Volonte is snatched by Bouqet and Noiret and their side under what jurisdiction they have, if they have any, and Trintignant feels cheated by them and tries to expose the French conspiracy. If the plot sounds a little bit convoluted, it is a little bit, and again, it is a bit kind of exposition heavy in the first half hour or so, but again, it really gains momentum, and it fits quite nicely in those 70s bleak political films that America did well, like Parallax View and others. So this is a film that it does have some surprises of where it goes and what happens to certain people, but it was made in the 70s, so maybe it's perhaps not as surprising for people who know what a 70s type film means. But it's just wonderful to see a cast like this. I can't really think of too many films that has a cast of the calibre that it does. But again, the core is Trintignant, who just like quietly goes about his business. Volonte only has one outburst of Volonte. The rest he's fairly charming and calm. Again, Piccoli goes for brooding intensity and threat. And perhaps only Noiret, who has quite a lot of the film eating, is a little bit more rambunctious, but again, he's just a little bit more rambunctious as an actor anyway. So in the end result, it is a wonderful film, but the first half, it takes a little bit to get going. There's a little bit too much exposition. A lot of it is people sitting around in offices, looking smug, but because it is one of those films you look at the cast and go, could it possibly as good as the cast would suggest? And I would say it comes pretty close. I certainly can't get enough Volonte or Trintignant, and again, seeing Francois Perier as another cop, you can never have enough Francois Perier as cops. He plays it so well as Jean Seberg and another associate, when certain members of the authorities think they're just making the whole thing up and Trintignant isn't in trouble or in danger. Perier is the one that's trying to find out the truth, as he has done so many times in films. Who knows, maybe it is actually a real policeman and he just does a bit of acting in films, because he has the whole cop thing down pat. So really not that much to say about it without giving away things, which I'm not going to do. But it is a lot of fun, and again, if you're a fan of European cinema, the faces and the actors that are in this is just ridiculous. It's quite wonderful, even though it's far from perfect, but it's certainly well worth checking out if you are a fan of those Piccoli films from the 70s, or in general those kind of political thrillers. So thanks very much for watching another random review, and hopefully join me again for more random reviews, because there's always something really random round the corner. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell